Our next keynote speaker is Mr. Kanishk Gaur, founder and CEO, India Future Foundation. Joining him in this presentation will be Mr. Rakesh Maheswari, advisor, cyber regulations, and a former senior director, MeitY. Mr. Gaur is a digital and cyber security specialist with 12 plus years of experience advising government and industry in India, Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. A TEDx speaker, author, and founder of a not-for-profit public policy think tank, India Future Foundation, Mr. Gaur promotes online safety for women and children and prevention of crime against women on the internet. Mr. Gaur regularly consults with the United Nations, British government, Commonwealth Secretariat, and the Indian government on digital policy, cyber security, and internet-related policies. He has authored articles for the Times of India, Economic Times, Financial Express, and Dainik Jagran. In 2018, he received the Chevenix Fellowship by the British government. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our two next speakers. Over to you.
So, thank you so much. So our presentation is going to be focused on two areas. One on cybersecurity and the whole remediation part on cybersecurity. So along with me have Mr. Rakesh Maheswari. Mr. Maheshwari was the Senior Director and General Counsel for Ministry of Electronics, Information and Technology. He played a significant role in framing India's Personal Data Protection Bill and also supporting the government on the Digital India Act. And I think he's done some fantastic work. So post 35 years of service, he has taken a voluntary retirement and now an independent thought leader, advisor, and mentor to a lot of think tanks and civil society organizations. Welcome, Mr. Maheshwari.
Thank you.
So, particularly with respect to the automotive sector, what we are seeing right now is that there are large number of cyber attacks which are happening. And a lot of times the calls that I got are primarily where companies have already been compromised. So these companies have already been hit by a ransomware. Their systems have been encrypted. And they normally reach out when they want a decryption to be done. That's typically been the scenario. So in India, we have been more reactive in terms of some of the cyber attacks which have been happening. And I think Commander Aditya has highlighted on some of the aspects, where work needs to be done forward. So if you look at the escalating cost of ransomware, there has been significant increase in the ransomware attacks. Particularly in the year 2023, we have seen close to $30 billion plus money that is being spent in basically responding to ransomware, and this is a figure according to IBM. And globally, if you look at a bounty, close to 454 million has been paid. So that's the cost which is impacting all of us. So what have been the latest trends on ransomware? The focus has been on data extortion, monetizing the data, exploiting the cloud. So another trend, one of my colleagues, Manmeet Randhada, she's here, she was telling me that a lot of companies today are moving away from public cloud and there is focus on hybrid cloud because security is becoming paramount. So today organizations are moving to work on more private or hybrid clouds than just take on public clouds. So that's according to one of the latest reports from HCL. And scaling through this is requiring a lot of automation. And these days, dark web is turning out to be a big source where zero-day vulnerabilities are getting shared and are getting used. So a lot of things happening, particularly on ransomware. Now, this has been some of the ransomware attacks which have been active, but a lot of them have now become really active. So if I look at the Lockbit Ransomware, which was earlier dated 2020, it's got a new form and it is very active right now. A new series of attacks have been launched by Lockbit. We also saw recently some activity by the Royal Ransomware, Revil and Hive. While these ransomwares have been old, but these have become active in 2023. So that's one of the key things that we have noticed. In terms of targeting techniques, phishing email has been the most common technique. And people miss out on phishing emails. So this is the first line of defense where we see a lot of organizations don't have their DMARC and SPF records correctly set. Email security is not correctly defined for them. So that's one of the biggest issues that we find. Then remote desktop protocol-based attacks, lack of patching of software vulnerabilities, watering hole techniques, insider threats, those have been big. And then a lot of malwares. Today on dark web, we find that you can download a lot of malware and use them as a service. So that's one of the big issues that we are finding. And malicious macros getting enabled because companies have not set parameters to disable macros. So that's becoming also one of the big issues. And then USB and removable drives become the first point of failure. A lot of companies allow, and a lot of times you get distributed with USBs in events, and you end up using and then getting your systems compromised. So my word to you would be, if you are getting a USB from an event or any hard drive or flash drive, please do not take that home. Just gift it to a child rather than taking it to your office. So that's one of the key things I think which is very important. Recent attacks globally has been the Amsterdam, Rotterdam attack, the Colonial Pipeline attack, the Volu ASA attack, and the Copal and Electrovast attack. So these have been some of the recent global attacks. And in terms of the way they have been working, we've seen that the Vice ransomware has typically been encrypting a lot of files, having encrypted file extensions. We also saw some of the other ransomware where they are trying to lock files. So there are new forms which are emerging today. Now these are some of the SHS 256 functions of these ransomware attacks which have been going on. Now in terms of protecting ransomware attacks, there need to be multi-layer security, which could be through multi-factor authentication techniques. You could also use effective information security management program. You could look at layered defense. That's there. You could also look at more of EDR, MDR platforms which are becoming really active. I think we'll have Mr. Ram Sundar from Vihir in our next panel. He can talk about one of the NDR platforms which is indigenously developed, right? And he'll be able to give you throw light. Then endpoint protection, encryption, those are some of the techniques where work needs to happen forward. Now just talking about some of the leaks. When we go on the dark web, we find a lot of leaks which are happening today, and these are some of them which are now public as of sharing them. So a company called as Dunzo, their entire database of 3.5 million customers was available. And other health records, now since healthcare has become critical part of the national critical infrastructure, health records is another area. LimeRoad is another company which was breached. So now in terms of how we safeguard against ransomware, very, very important that there are few government guidelines which have come in. And if you get hit and you got breached, there are 3 government laws which really impact you. One is first the certain guideline, where if you don't report the breach within 4 hours, you could be penalized. The second is the personal data protection law, where there is a penalty up to 250 crores, which is there. And if you're part of the critical infrastructure, then you have the NCIPC guidelines, which are there. So covering this, I'll invite Mr. Rakesh Maheswari. Mr. Maheshwari, over to you.
So good afternoon. As mentioned by my colleague, Mr. Kanishk, the attacks are on the rise. Cyber security has to be one of the most prioritized area because it impacts business. But in addition to business, the government has recently come out with the Digital Data Protection Act, which also requires privacy protection, protection of personal data, and in case there is any security breach which results into loss, unauthorized destruction or leakage of personal data, the penalties can be as high as 250 crores per incident in India. So that means it is not just a business issue, it is also a huge compliance issue as well. And that's why it is important to understand, because each one of us is collecting personal data, and particularly in automobile sector. I mean, we just heard the previous session. you will be hearing the next session as well, with the connected cars, with in fact the new technologies that are coming up, lots and lots of personal data is being collected, primarily of course for the benefit of the customer, but simultaneously casting a responsibility on the organizations, on the entities which have collected it, who now need to ensure 100% security of this data. Of course, collection also is now in a very accountable mode as to why you are collecting, what you are collecting, for how long you will be retaining it. Everything has to be transparently conveyed, but over and above, security becomes paramount. The second aspect Ms. Kanishk mentioned was with respect to the CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team directions, which were issued in April 2022. And that also has a clear bearing on all the entities working in India, whether from government or from private, wherein particularly certain class of security incidents need to be reported within 6 hours. Every organization has to have a point of contact being communicated to Computer Emergency Response Team as CISO maybe, most likely. Also maintaining the Indian standards time, I mean so clocks in your networks, and so on and so forth. In fact, certain also provide certain, I mean it's not just about the legal side of it, the compliance side of it, there is also lot of positive activities which certain does, particularly in the area of Cyber Swachhata Kendra, the botnet analysis and clearing center. This is an organization of the Government of India working for 24/7 and has got the capability to even get to know if your computer, the last mile computer, has been infected with a bot, but because they may not directly having the visibility as to whose computer it is, they normally work it through the ISPs, but within the organization, if the IPs are fixed, they can as well approach directly to the organizations and through the ISPs to the individuals to be able to convey that their computers are infected by the bots and they can be cleaned using the tools available on that particular site. Of course, last, I also would like to convey that the Information Technology Act, which deals with all online intermediaries, the due diligence for online intermediaries, including the social media intermediaries, where once again as automobile stakeholders, you will be having a presence on the social media side as well, whether it is with respect to the content, whether it is with respect to the once again the maintenance of those accounts. The present IT Act and the future likely to be the Digital India Act is going to deal about all these aspects, including the security, including the privacy, including the due diligence to be followed in all such accounts and by all such websites and apps which may be getting developed by you.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this is your presentation, sir. You can keep this.
Done.
So so I think that's all from our end. We'll save those 8 minutes and give it back to the next panel. If anyone has any questions with respect to the certain guideline or the data protection, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, happy to close on the session. Yeah. Back to the team. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to invite Anuj to come on stage to felicitate our speakers. Mr. Kanishk Gaur. Applause, ladies and gentlemen. And Mr. Rakesh Maheswari. Come, sir. A photo? Yes. आप बीच में आ जाइए अनुज.